Hello, boys and girls. We're going to continue Ramona the Pest. I hope you've been following up with the other chapters. We are on chapter 5 now, Ramona's engagement ring. So you guys know what that is? It's like a wedding ring. Let's see what that has to do with. Okay, here we go. So before we start, let's just make sure we remember what happened last chapter. Remember, there was a substitute teacher and Ramona refused to go into the class. She hid behind the trash cans. The older students found her, took her to the principal's office, and the principal walked her into class. Let's see what happens next. Ramona's engagement ring. "No," said Ramona on the first rainy morning after she had started kindergarten. "Yes," said Mrs. Quimby. Mrs. Quimby. "No," said Ramona, "I won't." "Ramona, be sensible," said Mrs. Quimby. "I don't want to be sensible," said Ramona. "I hate being sensible." "Now, Ramona," said her mother, and Ramona knew she was about to be reasoned with, "you have a new raincoat. Boots cost money, and Howie's old boots are perfectly good. The soles are scarcely worn." "The tops aren't shiny," Ramona told her mother, "and they're brown boots. Brown boots are for boys." "They keep your feet dry," said Mrs. Quimby, "and that is what boots are for." Ramona realized she looked sulky, but she could not help herself. Only grown-ups would say boots were for keeping feet dry. Anyone in kindergarten knew that a girl should wear shiny red or white boots on the first rainy day, not to keep her feet dry, but to show off. That's what boots were for. Showing off, wading, splashing, stamping. "Ramona," said Mrs. Quimby sternly, "get that look off your face this instant. Either you wear these boots or you stay home from school." Ramona recognized that her mother meant what she said. And so, because she loved kindergarten, she sat down on the floor and dragged on her hated brown boots, which did not go with her flowered plastic raincoat and hat. Howie arrived in a yellow slicker that was long enough for him to grow into for at least 2 years, and a yellow rain hat that almost hid his face. Look at them on that rainy day. Beneath the raincoat, Ramona glimpsed a pair of shiny brown boots, which she supposed she would have to wear someday when they were old and dull and dirty. "Those are my old boots," said Howie, looking at Ramona's feet as they started off to school. "You better not tell anyone." Ramona plodded along on feet almost too heavy to lift. It was a perfect morning for anyone with new boots. Enough rain had fallen in the night to fill the gutters with muddy streams and to bring worms squirming out of the lawns onto the sidewalks. The intersection by the school was unusually quiet that morning because rain had halted construction on the new market. Ramona was so downhearted that she did not tease Henry Huggins when he led her across the street. The kindergarten playground, as she had expected, was swarming with boys and girls in raincoats, most of them too big, and boots, most of them new. The girls wore various sorts of raincoats and red and white boots, all except Susan, who carried her new white boots so she would not get them muddy. The boys looked alike because they all wore yellow raincoats and hats and brown boots. Ramona was not even sure which boy was Davy. Not that he mattered to her this morning. Her feet felt too heavy for chasing anyone. Part of the class had lined up properly by the door, waiting for Miss Binney, while the rest ran about clomping, splashing, and stamping. Those are boy boots you're wearing," said Susan to Ramona. Ramona did not answer. Instead, she picked up a smooth pink worm that lay wiggling on the playground and, without really thinking, wound it around her finger. "Look," yelled Davy from beneath his big raincoat. "Ramona's wearing a ring made out of a worm." Ramona had not thought of the worm as a ring until now. But she saw at once that the idea was interesting. "See my ring?" she shouted, thrusting her fist towards the nearest face. Boots were temporarily forgotten. Everyone ran screaming from Ramona to avoid being shown her ring. "See my ring? See my ring?" shouted Ramona, racing around the playground on feet that were suddenly much lighter. When Miss Binny appeared around the corner, the class scrambled to line up by the door. "Miss Binny, Miss Binny!" Everyone wanted to be first to tell. "Ramona is wearing a worm for a ring." "It's a pink worm," said Ramona, thrusting out her hand. "Not an old dead white worm." "Oh, what a pretty worm," said Miss Binny bravely. "It's so smooth and pink." Ramona elaborated. "It's my engagement ring." "Who are you engaged to?" asked Anne. "I haven't decided," asked Ramona. "Not me," Davy piped up. "Not me," said Howie. "Not me," said Erigar. "Well, Ramona," Miss Binny was searching for words. "I don't think you should wear your ring during kindergarten. Why don't you put it down on the playground in a puddle so it will stay fresh?" Ramona was happy to do anything Miss Binny wanted her to. She unwound the worm from her finger and placed it carefully in a puddle where it lay limp and still. After that, Ramona raced around the playground with a worm around her finger. Whenever her mother made her wear Howie's old boots to school, and when everyone asked who she was engaged to, she always answered, "I haven't decided." "Not me," Davy always said, followed by Howie, Eric R., and any other boys who happened to be near. Then one Saturday, Mrs. Quimby examined Ramona's scuffed shoes and discovered that not only were the heels worn down, the leather of the toes was worn through because Ramona stopped her lopsided two-wheeled tricycle by dragging her toes on the concrete. Mrs. Quimby had Ramona stand up while she felt her feet through the leather. "It's time for new shoes," Miss Quimby decided. "Get your jacket and your boots and we'll drive down to the shopping center." "It isn't raining today," said Ramona. Why do I have to take boots?" "To see if they will fit over your new shoes," answered her mother. "Hurry along, Ramona." When they reached the shoe store, Ramona's favorite shoe salesman said, as Ramona and her mother sat down, "What's the matter with my little Petunia today? Don't you have a smile for me?" Ramona shook her head and looked sadly and longingly at a row of beautiful shiny girl boots displayed on one side of the store. There she sat with Howie's dingy old brown boots beside her. How could she smile? A babyish nursery school girl who was wearing new red boots was rocking joyously on the shoe store's rocking horse while her mother paid for the boots. "Well, we'll see what we can do for you," said the salesman briskly as he pulled off Ramona's shoes and made her stand with her foot on the measuring stick. Finding the right pair of Oxfords for her did not take him long. "Now, try on the boots," said Mrs. Quimby in her no-nonsense voice, when Ramona had walked across the shoe store and back in her new shoes. For a moment, as Ramona sat down on the floor and grasped one of the hated boots, she considered pretending she could not get it on. However, she knew she could not get away with this trick because the shoe store man understood both children and shoes. She pulled and yanked and tugged and managed to get her foot most of the way in. When she stood up, she was on tiptoe inside the boot. Her mother tugged some more, and her shoe went all the way into the boot. "There," said Mrs. Quimby. Ramona sighed. The babyish nursery schoolgirl stopped rocking long enough to announce to the world, "I have new boots." "Tell me, Petunia," said the shoe man, "how many boys and girls in your kindergarten class?" 29, said Ramona with a long face. 29, most of them with new boots. The happy-booted nursery school baby climbed off the rocking horse collected her free balloon, and left with her mother. The shoeman spoke to Mrs. Quimby. Kindergarten teachers like boots to fit loosely so the children can manage by themselves. I doubt if Petunia's teacher has time to help. I doubt if Petunia's teacher has time to help with 58 boots. I hadn't thought of that, said Mrs. Quimby. Perhaps we had better look at boots after all. I'll bet Petunia here would like red boots, said the shoeman. When Ramona beamed, he added, I had a hunch that wouldn't get a smile out of you. When Ramona left the shoe store with her beautiful red boots, girl boots, in a box which she carried by herself, she was so filled with joy, she set her balloon free just to watch it sail over the parking lot and up into the sky until it was a tiny red dot against the gray clouds. The stiff soles of her new shoes made such a pleasant noise on the pavement that she began to prance. She was a pony. No, she was one of the 3 Billy Goat Gruff, the little one, trip-trapping over the bridge that the troll was hiding under. Ramona trip-trapped joyfully all the way to the parked car, and when she reached home, she trip-trapped up and down the hall and all around the house. Oh my God. For goodness sakes, Ramona, said Mrs. Quimby, while she was marking Ramona's name in the new boots. Can't you just walk? Not when I'm the littlest Billy Goat Gruff, answered Ramona, and trip-trapped down the hall to her room. Unfortunately, there was no rain the next morning, so Ramona left her new boots at home and trip-trapped to school, where she did not have much chance of catching Davy because he could run faster than she could trip-trap in her stiff new shoes. She trip-trapped to her seat, and later, because she was art monitor who got to pass out drawing paper, she trip-trapped to the supply cupboard and trip-trapped up and down the aisles passing out paper. Ramona, I would like it if you walked quietly, said Miss Benny. I am the littlest Billy Goat Gruff, explained Ramona. I have to trip-trap. You may trip-trap when you go outdoors. Mrs. Benny's voice was firm. You may not trip-trap in the classroom. At playtime, the whole class turned into Billy Goat Gruff and trip-trapped around the playground, but none so joyfully or so noisily as Ramona. The gathering clouds, Ramona noticed, were dark and threatening. Let me see how much we have to go to. I'm going to try to be like Ramona. Okay, so it's getting dark and cloudy. We're going to see next time. We're going to do part 2 of this chapter and see what happens next. So because I don't think she's prepared with her boots, right? We'll see. Bye, guys.